Number 1. I was about 4 or 5 years old and my parents had just separated. My mom was living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I had my own room, but I liked sleeping in her bed whenever I was with her. Our 2 bedrooms were at the end of the hallway directly across from each other. Our apartment was on the first floor, and I remember that it was in the middle of the summer and my mom had a window open in her room and was directly behind her bed above the headboard. Anyways, I woke up in the middle of the night and remember sitting up and seeing that our cat was sitting in the door frame of my mom's room. Her door was open and you could partially see into my bedroom. It was strange because our cat was a huge snuggler and was typically always in bed with us. As I was watching him, he walked into my bedroom and meowed. I turned to face my mom and wake her up. In the 3-4 seconds it took her to wake up and ask me what was wrong, we both looked back up at the door frame and there was a man standing by my open door making his way out of my bedroom. I still don't know how she managed to do it so quickly, but my mother proceeded to pick me up and literally throw me out of the screen window. Again, we were on the first floor and it was maybe a 3-foot drop to the ground. She quickly followed me and we were able to start screaming for help and someone called 911. The police came, but didn't see any signs of forced entry, only that our front door was unlocked, which led them to believe the man must have exited that way. But the strange thing was that my mom swore up and down that she had locked the door at night with the deadbolt and chain lock. About a week later, she was cleaning the kitchen and opened up her water heater closet and found a notebook with names and drawings, as well as a pair of gloves and some gum wrappers. The man had been in our house and hid when we were asleep. Number 2. I moved to my dad's when I was 10 and didn't know anyone in the area except for the family my dad was friends with. Single mom with 3 kids. Luckily, there was a girl a couple years older than me, 12 at the time I met her, and we got to know each other a little over a couple years. We weren't close, but ended up having the same friends. One night, my friend Rob was hanging out with her and her younger brother. They happened to be in the house alone because my friend's mom was at work, which is where this gets terrifying and sad. Her mother has been helping this lady through her work and got to know her fairly well. She found out her sister was in a mental institution and was let out recently. The night Rob is hanging out with my friend, they get a knock at the door. My friend thought it was just their mom. She knocks a certain way when coming in, answered it without thinking. Rob wasn't supposed to be there, and he took off through the window to his house down the road. He never thought twice about it. It wasn't her mom, it was the sister of the lady her mom was helping, and she figured out through talking to her sister where her family lived and her mom's working schedule. She came in, and this is where I don't know the details, and I'm glad I don't. My friend's younger brother got away to the neighbors to call the police. The lady brutally murdered my friend a week from Christmas, decapitated her, and left her body naked in a bathtub, hid her head. They had to look through the presents, and I don't know where they found it, but they did. I wasn't allowed to go to her funeral. Number 3. This happened to my wife's grandmother about 15 years ago while we were still dating. Her husband had just passed away about a year previously, but she'd been going down to the library and volunteering exercise and socialization. This was in the winter, so her walk back was while it was getting dark. The library closed at 5 and there was some extra stuff to do before everyone actually left. And on this particular night, she turned down a ride home from another volunteer because, damn it, she needed to stay in shape. The house was about a mile away through some lightly wooded area in South Texas, and as she's about halfway home, she notices someone behind her. He's walking the same direction and gaining on her, which in itself isn't all that particular. She's old and thus not particularly fast, but in this case, he seems particularly sinister. They kept walking. Pretty soon, he's right behind her. Then he falls into pace, just staying behind her. Now she knows that something's up, but she's almost home and she can see the top of her driveway coming up, and she leaves her lights on so it'll look like someone's home when she's walking in. She just needs to make it another 150 yards, then 100. All that time, she said he was so close that she could feel his breath on her neck. Maybe 50 yards it happens. Strong had on her shoulder. Okay, bitch, don't turn around and hand over your purse or I'll fucking cut ya. She stops for a second and takes one big step forward, turns and shoots the guy in the neck with a .38 she kept in her purse. Hey, it's Texas. The guy spent the next 5 years in prison hospital before he died of complications. My wife's grandmother passed last year. Up to the end, she lamented that she pulled the trigger too soon. My late husband would have been embarrassed to know I missed. Number 4. Our elderly neighbor fell sick and had to go to hospital. Her niece asked us to take care of her dog while she was away. So after schoolwork and dinner, me and my brother were sent over to make sure he was doing okay. So it was a late night in this weird old lady's house. My brother was in the shed with the dog and I was in the living room looking at the creepy old photos on the mantelpiece. What follows is true. I heard the door creak and then a woman's voice call out the dog's name. I freaked out and turned around. Obviously there was nobody about. I thought maybe it was just the neighbor's niece, but had that weird, did I hear that outside my head or inside it, echo to it. You know what I mean. So I also thought I was just letting the creepy house get to me. But then I went out to my brother and Naki and he was freaking out too because he thought he'd heard a woman's voice inside the shed with him saying, "Oh, there you are." We both agreed the voice had that weird in-your-head sound to it, and were convinced there were ghosts in the place. Left the dog in the shed, went home, and were greeted by Dad, who told us the neighbor's niece had just called to say the neighbors passed away in the hospital just a few hours ago. Number 5. There's an abandoned house next to mine. The previous owner moved out to California 25 years prior and never sold it. I got a flashlight, gloves, and pushed the window open and went inside, starting with the basement. In the basement was a grand piano. Still plays, but very much out of tune. Old World War II stuff. What seemed to be a signed Elvis poster. Some other really cool shit no one should ever leave behind. Basically a whole story in the basement, including a broken wedding picture frame and instruments everywhere. On the main floor was an unmade bed, molded, food still in the fridge, and on the stovetop, half empty, beers turned solid, lights that still hadn't been turned off. And I started walking upstairs when I heard crying from one of the side rooms. That's when I freaked the F out and haven't been there since. Number 6. I was just talking about this today, scared because of human nature. My neighbor at my old apartment was a state park ranger for years, now retired. Apparently when he got his first job, there was a younger kid who went missing while out on a camping or hiking trip. They organized a huge search of the area to no avail, no clues or anything. Kid is just missing. A few years go by and some evidence turns up that wasn't in the direction they originally searched. It was part of his camping equipment. On his off time, my neighbor took to searching the area where it was found, hoping for more clues. Just outside the state park lived a couple in a ramshackle who were quiet, reclusive, and odd. One day my neighbor had to talk to them about something unrelated to the missing kid. He's in their house, which is a mess of junk, no running water, etc. Hard to focus on anything there. While he was talking to the couple, he realizes that the guy's ashtray looks weird. He looks closer and realizes that it's a skull and it looks small. There's the investigation into the couple, and here's where things get really weird. Investigation shows that they were innocent of killing the kid. He probably died of exposure or dehydration. Apparently the guy came across the body afterwards, and his dogs were after it. When he took the skull, it was really recent after death, and apparently had some head features still on it, hair and everything. The guy took it and defleshed the damn thing and took the top off to use it as an ashtray. Apparently he was well aware there was a then current search for missing child and could recognize the kid from the pictures, but it never dawned on him or his wife to go to the cops and inform them of the find. He just saw an opportunity for an ashtray. Apparently he showed them where the remains were and they scourged together enough for brule, but kept it quiet so that the family didn't know some guy put out his Malmorans in the kid's head for 5 years after letting his dogs eat the remains. Number 7. couple months ago, my friend's cousin, a single mother, bought a new cell phone. After a long day of work, she came home, placed her phone on the counter, and went to watch some TV. Her son came down to her and asked her if he could play on her new phone. She told him not to call anyone or mess around with text messages, and he agreed. At around 11:20 p.m., she was drowsy and she decided to tuck her son in and go to bed. She walked in his room and saw that he wasn't there. She then ran over to her room to find him sleeping on her bed with the phone in his hand. Relieved, she picked her phone back up from his hand to inspect it. Browsing through it, she noticed only minor changes, such as a new background, banner, etc. But then she opened up her saved pictures. She began deleting the images he had taken until only one picture remained. When she first saw it, she was in disbelief. It was her son sleeping on the bed, but the picture was taken by someone else above him, and it showed the left half of an elderly woman's face. Number 8. When I was little, it was just my mom and I in this tiny house in a small town. I have a freakishly good memory, so I can clearly remember the layout of the tiny room, which was the laundry room from the previous owners. It was long and narrow, with just enough room for my crib against one wall and the window high up on the other. Now, I've always hated windows at night. I won't look out them. I keep the curtains shut or run past them. My fear has always been that I'll look out and see a face staring back. After a bad breakup in my early 20s, I moved back home with my mom, and after she observed this behavior, I told her my weird paranoia. She kind of laughed and proceeded to tell me when I was about 2, I would scream and scream that there was a man in my window. I had nightmares, so she didn't really think much of it until one night she became in to shut me up, and there was a frickin' man staring into the window. I looked at her like she was nuts. How could I not have known this? Then she continued to tell me that the man was the father of one of my really good friends growing up. He was known for peeping into single women's windows. She also didn't tell me I had a beating heart murmur, and when the doctor discovered it, once again my early 20s, that scared the crap out of me too. Thanks, Mom. Number 9. I was babysitting my niece once a while. I was staying at my brother's place and they had the baby camera set up so I could see her on the little TV it came with. I was studying and started dozing off when I heard something whispering and realized it was coming from the monitor. I initially thought it was just some feedback or something, but when I looked at the TV, there was a dark shadow near my niece's crib. I have never been more terrified in my life, but the shadow was clearly there where it had not been before. I ran to my niece's room and looked around and saw nothing, but I took her the hell out of there and went back to the TV and the shadow was clearly gone. I told my brother what happened and he pulled me aside and told me not to mention it to my sister-in-law because she'll freak out, but that he had seen the same thing several times now, with the same whispering. They stayed in that house for about 4 more years, and when my niece was just learning to walk, she would tell my mom about her special friend. To this day, it scares the absolute shit out of me. When they moved out, my brother told me that my niece had become incredibly sad because she would miss her friend. Her mom would tell her she could bring him along, but all she would say was that he couldn't leave the house. We have never to this day told her about the damn shadow and she apparently never saw it. Number 10. One night when I was maybe 10 or 12 years old, I had trouble falling asleep. My bedroom was the entire top floor of our house, with my bed and such being on the left side and storage closets and a play area being on the right side. I was lying in bed when I heard a noise from the other side of the room and see a rocking horse begin to rock. It was sitting just outside of the storage closet doors. It proceeded to rock its way halfway across the room and stopped dead under the ceiling light. At this point, I was just freaking out and just buried my head under the blankets and never peeked out again until morning. It was all confirmed to not be a dream as the rocking horse was still in the middle of my room when I woke up. I got a stern reprimand from my parents for being up out of bed playing with my toys well past my bedtime. Their bedroom was directly below the storage closet / play area and had heard creaking of the rocking horse shuffling across the room. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure you guys do support the video by dropping a like. It always supports the channel. All these stories I read were either from Reddit or just off the internet. I haven't received enough stories from you guys to do a full video on scary stories submitted by subscribers or viewers. So if you guys have ever encountered any scary stories in your life, make sure you guys submit them with the email provided in the description down below. But anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and maybe comment down below what you guys would like me to do for the next one. For example, stalker stories, Home Alone stories. This one was kind of just a mix of anything, really. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.